Hey gang, welcome back to the channel. My name's Nicky V. I'm a studio musician and producer here in Nashville, so I play guitar on people's records. Here on YouTube I do different things, like take you guys behind the scenes on tracking sessions. I do a few guitar lessons. I did a couple of guitar setup tips you guys seem to like. And I thought I'd do some more free lessons on here. And if you guys like this one-on-one teaching style that's more conceptual rather than spoon-feeding you a bunch of licks you're going to forget in a few weeks, hit that link down in the description. It's called Nicky V's Fretboard Mechanics. It's a course I put out a few weeks ago that's kind of aims at organizing the fretboard and eliminating any dead spots to where you can play any key anywhere freely across the guitar neck. And the initial response has been overwhelmingly, insanely positive from all you guys that have purchased already. Thank you so much. It really means a lot. So let's get into it. Soloing melodically across the fretboard. And this is really like handing you guys the key to the city, right? And it's interesting. I've never heard of another video talking about this. And I know I say that a lot. That's why I make these videos, is I try to do things that people don't talk about a lot, or at least give a slightly different perspective on it. And one of my favorite things I do when I'm on a session is everybody's in the break room, right? That's where they go to refill their coffee and chill out in between, songs or whatever. And I like to corner people up there and then pick their brains. And because it's a rare opportunity to ask, master musicians, like the top 1% of the 1%, how they organize their thoughts. And that's what I ask them. I go, hey man, how do you organize your thoughts on your instrument? Just a very broad-based question like that. And they sit there and they think about it for a while and they unload just, incredible wisdom on you at times. And a lot of the time I'll ask them more specific questions like, okay, well, how do you come up with a melodic hook? That 4-bar intro that needs some kind of melodic element there. How are you organizing your thoughts to develop or come up with that hook? And I get a handful of different answers. Some guys, give you answers like, I'm just rephrasing the melody a certain way. Some freaks can just conjure magic out of thin air and pull out this most amazing, melodic, beautiful thing just off the cuff, right? And they don't know how they do it. Some guys are doing it through a mix of knowledge of the fretboard and their instincts, which is most people. But a lot of those guys can't really explain how they're doing it, so that's why I thought I'd make this video, because after picking enough minds and organizing my own thoughts, I can kind of tell you at least how I think about it and how a lot of my friends do. So when they say they do it instinctually, this is going to be a very broad stroke, but what that means typically is, if you're going to analyze it, would be they're envisioning the shape of a melody over a chord progression or through a chord progression. And as they're envisioning the shape of that melody weaving through a chord progression, they are targeting and landing on chord tones. Or they're playing with the tension and release of a dissonant note or non-chord tone resolving to a chord tone. Like if you were to overanalyze it right on paper, that's a lot of the time what's happening. And like I said, that's a very broad stroke right there, but that's typically what I'm seeing, or how I'm seeing them thinking about it, and that's how I organize my own thoughts. But then I ask them a more specific question. I ask them, okay, well, regarding the chord tones, say you're in the key of C and you play a G chord. That's the 5 chord, right? Are you thinking in terms of 5 of the 5 chord for a chord tone, or are you thinking in terms of 2 relating back to the parent major scale? So for example, to show you what I'm talking about, if we're in the key of C and a G chord comes, you can aim for a D. You can land on or target a D note. And the reason that works is because it's the 5 of the 5 chord. If you're in the key of C, G chord is your 5, and the 5 of the 5 is D. It's a chord tone of the triad, right? So you can aim for that D note right there. Or you can think about it in terms of relating back to its parent major scale, which what is D in relation to C? It's a 2 or a 9, it's the second interval. So this is the golden question, right? It's how do you organize that thought? Do you think about it in terms of the parent major scale or in terms of the chord that it's being played over? And more times than not, my favorite guitar players are thinking in terms of the parent major scale. And this is how I organize my thoughts as well, but this is typically not taught this way. And I feel like it should be, because my favorite guitar players that I admire and look up to tend to organize their thoughts this way, and they have a deep, deep sense of melodicism. And I think that deep melodicism comes from the fact that they are thinking about that chord progression moving by in time, and the melody still being in the key of C in this example, weaving in and out of those chord progressions, rather than moving in blocks, being, okay, here's my 5 chord, I can play the 1, 3, 5 of that 5 chord. Here's my 4 chord, I can play the 1, 3, 5 of that 4 chord. And if you think like that, it's inherently not going to be as melodic as if you are thinking about a linear scale moving through a chord progression. So how we organize and frame our thoughts will influence what comes out of our hands. And the average mortal ear is not hearing that D note as a 5 of the 5 chord. They are hearing it as a whole step tension above the 1, getting ready to resolve back to 1, most likely. And the reason that they hear that is because our ear has been centered for the last 3 minutes of the song around the key of C, or whatever key you're in, the tonic. And so you're hearing it in terms of the tonic, not whatever arbitrary chord is happening at that point in time. That's just not how the ear typically works. They hear it as tension or release pulling back to 1 or back to tonic from dominant or subdominant. So our melodic line needs to contour cater to that. And also thinking like 5 of the 5 chord or 3 of the 5 chord or 3 of the 4 chord, it requires an extra step. And that little extra bit of calculation required sometimes can come across as hesitation in your playing. And the last thing that sounds great in your playing is hesitation, right? You have to really be sure and own everything you're playing and play it like you mean it. That's how you make people believe it. And there's ways around this because obviously you can, envision the triads around each one of these and how these move through cycles and different mechanisms across the fretboard that help you envision where those chord tones are quicker. In an ideal world, you're seeing both at the same time. I'm seeing this G major triad right here, and I'm seeing that's the 5 of that triad, but I'm also seeing that melodically, in the context of C, that's a 2 or a 9, the second degree, that's going to get pulled back to 1, just like 5 going back to 1. It releases that tension. So in an ideal world, you're seeing both at the same time, and then depending on musical context, you might be seeing one or leaning more heavily on one than the other. Typically, if I'm trying to play melodic, I'm going to think more in terms of the parent major scale rather than just moving block-like through the chord progression in each of those chord tones, like I said earlier. So let's get into it. Try to hand you guys the key to City, like I said, and hope you guys find this stuff helpful. If you do, please like and subscribe. And if this interval stuff is a little over your head at first, towards the end of the video, if you guys are more in that beginner intermediate stage, I'm going to do an interval breakdown. So just hang on through there. We'll put that at the end of the video. So say we are in the key of C. I need you guys to get out a piece of paper or a pen or pencil and write 1, 4, 5, and 6 on it, okay? Just on big numbers on the side of the piece of paper. Now off to the side of each one of those, over the 1, I want you to write 1, 3, 5. And those are intervals that we can target. That's easy, right? If that's just the 1, 3, 5. If you're in the key of C, that's C, E, and G. It's your triad, your chord tones. Now, this is where it gets a little interesting. When it goes to the 4 chord, what you can do is you can target the chord tones of that 4 chord, but change the way you think about them rather than, okay, here's my F major triad. Think about them in terms of 1, 4, and 6. So if you're in the key of C and you're soloing through the key of C and a 4 chord comes, in this case F, you can aim for a 1, a 4, or a 6. So I'm in C. And I aim for a 6. I can see that that's a 6 interval, and that resolves perfectly to that 4. It lands, it sets up that 4 chord beautifully. Which happens to be the 3 of the 4 chord, right? But if you're thinking like that, like I said, that's one extra degree of calculation to slow you down. If you just think 6, it's automatic. Now, on the next line of that piece of paper, so far for 1, we have 1, 3, and 5. Those are the ones you can aim for that chord when it's happening at that point in time. When the 4 chord comes, you can aim for what I said, 1, 4, and 6. Any one of those 3 work great. Next on your paper, write 5. And for the 5, you can aim for 2s, 5s, and 7s. And those are the chord tones of a G major triad relative to C. So now when the 5 chord comes, you can aim for a 2, a 5, or a 7. So see, I landed on that. That tells me right there, 5 chord. I landed on the 2. Now I'll land on the 7. It's great, right? Lands on the B, which is the 3 of the 5 chord. Now, for the 6, we're just setting up just a 1, 4, 5, 6 minor, right? So for the A minor, you can aim for those chord tones, which relative to C is 1, 3, and 6. So far on your paper, you have 1, 4, 5, and 6 minor written. Off to the side of the 1, the target notes you can land on are 1, 3, 5. Off to the 4, you have 1, 4, and 6. On the 5, you have 2, 5, and 7. And on the 6 minor, you have 1, 3, and 6. You can aim for any of those chord tones when that progression comes up. And this is just one example, right? You can do this for the 2 minor or the 3 minor. Just figure out what their chord tones are relative to C and aim for those. For example, a 3 minor, you can aim for a 7 because it's the 5 of the 3 chord. So if you got... So you have that progression going, you go. And that just, you know it's going to sound great. You know it's going to land and be melodic and have stability to it because that's kind of that triad. I'm seeing this E minor triad here, but I'm also, in in the forefront of my mind, knowing that, okay, a 3 minor's coming, I can aim for a 7. Super easy. It's just a half step below the 1. Easy as can be. So now how to practice this, right? Because it's like, okay, that's great, but how do I do this? Well, it's pretty simple. All you have to do is set up a backing track or find a song that you know the chords to. And you have to be able to hear that chord progression in the background moving, right? Because you have to know when to land on those chord tones. And this is why this is more towards the intermediate to advanced intermediate players. A lot of teachers, right? There's a lot of, even here in town, there's a lot of guys that teach here on YouTube and do courses and things like that. And what I've noticed is they assume that students can hear chords passing by in the background. So they're soloing. Most of the time, a beginner, intermediate, or an intermediate guitar player doesn't know the chords they're playing over. They know the key and they can kind of find that structure. But this is where you need to really start to develop, okay, I know that I'm playing over the 5 chord right now. I know that I'm playing over the 4 chord, because you have to know how to target each one of those chord tones or when to target them. And then you end up learning how to shape your line melodically to land, okay, there's the 3 of the 4 chord. Okay, well, what is the 3 of the 4 chord? It's a 6. So you're going through that 1 chord, now your 4 chord's coming up, and bam, you land on that A note in the key of C, which is your 6, which is the 3 of the 4 chord. You're seeing all that at the same time, kind of, in your mind's eye. And then, okay, now we're moving on to a 5 chord. I'm going to aim for a 2, because that's going to sound great. And then you're back to 1. So there's a lot of nuance that's happening in between all of that. So the exercise would be to set your chord progression up if you're struggling with it, finding it in a song. So set something up where you're going C. It's real simple and slow. Then go to the 4 chord. Back to the 1. G. 5 chord. Back to 1. And just loop that progression and practice landing on the chord tones to be like 1. I landed on the 4 from my 4 chord downbeat. Back to 1. Landed on the 3 of the 1. Landed on the 2, which sounds great over the 5. Back to my 1. 4 chord. 1. Back to my 5 chord. I'm just playing real simple stuff, and when that downbeat of that chord change happens, that's where you land on one of those chord tones. And this is just doing it in its most elementary form, right? You're weaving through that chord progression, you're targeting those chord tones melodically. And you're framing your thoughts like this, it's going to come out instinctually more melodic. I know I sound like a broken record saying the same thing over and over again, but I'm just trying to get that through to you guys here. And if you're a deep nerd like me, you can go through and figure out every permutation and then practice landing on those. And so it's not quite as random, right? You're making sure you're not leaving anything out. And a lot of the times when you go through the math of something like that, being like, okay, I'm going to combine the 1 with the 3 with the 5, and you go through all these different combinations, you unlock a lot of really beautiful things musically through just doing the math of it a lot of the time. And I know it's okay, how's that ends up being beautiful? It sounds mechanical. Well, sometimes when you go through figuring out every option of something, if you really are into this kind of stuff and you have the time, a lot of beauty like inherently lives within some of that math. And you might realize you love the way that going from the 7 on a 3 minor chord to the 1 of the 2 is really nice. So you're going from like E minor. So you get that counterpoint going with 1 down and 1 going up. Just this one example, but like there's a million of those out there, right? So you find the ones you really like, then eventually they become part of your vocabulary. And that's becomes what defines you as a player in your own individualism rather than just copying somebody else out there. And so you're developing your own voice through this. So the next step after you can kind of, really target those chord tones, have a command of doing that, is to inject it with, phrasing and dynamics, because dynamics tends to be what separates out the boys from the men when it comes to this. And this is where the feel and, your own musical instincts really come into it. You have a framework you can operate within, but you can also express yourself creatively within that framework. And that's beautiful. And at that point, like I said, you're really developing your own voice. And for a lot of you guys, that's kind of the ultimate thing, right? We tend to be a combination of all of our influences. And it's nice having something that purely is coming from us and our own heart and soul on this instrument, because we just went through the math of it. It's a concept. It's not transcribing Charlie Parker or, some Brian May or somebody that you love. It's just purely addressing the math of the instrument, and there's beauty within the math of it. And if you're having trouble developing some of that phrasing, like, man, how do I just play this like tasteful stuff that I hear guitar players doing? There's a few things you can do, or if you're like, hey, I'm tired of playing the same crap over and over again. One technique, I actually did a whole video on this where I just took a telly with only the B string on it, is you can practice soloing on just one string. You can actually use this whole concept of targeting those numbers, those chord tones melodically on one string. And since it's all on one string, it's inherently melodic, right? So, for example, if we want to solo melodically on one string, we can set up a chord progression that's something like 6 minor to 1, 6 minor to 1 major, A minor to C major, and then target those individual chord tones all on one string. So the 6 minor, for example, you'd have the 6, the 1, and the 3 related to C. And on the C major, you have 1, 3, and 5. So target those notes when those chords happen at that point in time. So over A minor, we had something like that. We're just kind of going. I'm kind of really aiming for these chord tones here, emphasizing them. Then when my 1 chord comes, there's my 3 and my 1. You can kind of emphasize the 5 and put some dynamics on it, right? You don't have to play every note with the same velocity. Try to pull as much expression out of this as you can on one string. And you're going to develop some new phrasing and things you typically haven't played because you're putting that restriction on yourself. And if you want to see more on that, I have a whole video on it. Just look back, soloing on one string. I put it out last year. And another thing you can do to further this exercise or kind of develop some more phrasing is sing every single note that you play. So I'm a terrible singer, so I apologize for everybody here, but like, be able to do that, it's going to slow you down a little bit, right? So you're going to naturally play more melodically because it's coming from your voice. It's internalized. It has to be internalized. It's going to be naturally melodic and have a vocal characteristic about it because it's coming from your voice. And it's going to be very difficult to not land on a chord tone over if you're playing a chord progression and you are singing a melody over that. It is difficult not to land on a chord tone because it's hard to sing against it with the dissonance. So you're naturally going to land on some of those notes the way I identified earlier if you're singing every line and landing on chord tones because it's consonant. And once you feel like you really have a command of all of these and can really target them on command for any of the diatonic chords in a particular key, a lot of the beauty comes from the dissonance that resolves to the stability of a chord tone. And so you can kind of play with that and see how far you can push it out. Don't just always land on a 1, 3, 5 when you're on the C. It gets real stale real quick. See if you can have that 4 kind of finesse its way down. Just that little bit of tension going over the C or the 1 is going to just add a little bit of beauty to it. When you get to the 4 chord, see if you can kind of put the 2 in there. It's over the F and the key of C. So you learn to really balance the tension and release, and you can kind of toy with the listener's ear when you're doing that because you can hang on a dissonant note just long enough to make him yearn for a consonant, chord tone. And then right at that point, you got to develop that art of when to release that dissonance, and that's where you really hit them, and that's what hits people in the heart. But first you have to be able to target the chord tone, so it's like, you can't put the cart before the horse. So hope my advanced intermediate guys like that stuff. I know I probably went a little deeper than I was initially planning on it with this. So the second part of this video is going to be more towards the beginner, intermediate to intermediate guitar player that's trying to get a command of these intervals down. So if that first part was a little bit over your head, start with this and then go back and watch the first part of this. So the first thing we need to do is find a few C notes on the guitar. So we have a C note here, C note there, got one there, and here, and here. We're going to use those kind of as what we calculate the intervals around them to start. So we're going to start off with a 2. So the 2 or the second interval is a whole step above the root. So if this is 1, that's 2. If that's 1, that's 2. If that's 1, that's 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. You get the idea. Now we're going to find the 7, which is a half step below the 1. So 1, 2, 1, 7, 1. So if this is 1, that's 7. That's 1, that's 7. 1, that's 7. Okay, so now we got 1, 2, 1, 7, 1. 1, 2, 1, 7, 1. 1, 2, 1, 7, 1. 1, 2, 1, 7, 1. 1, 2, 1, 7, 1. And I'm going to spare you guys me singing all of these, but the best thing you could possibly do for your ear training is to sing these intervals as you do them. So everything you play, sing it. 1, 2, 1, 7, 1, 1, 2, 1, 7, 1. And you start to develop that spatial, temporal reasoning to kind of see how far those distances are. You'll see that if you sing it, you internalize that a whole step is further away than a half step, or a fifth is further from a 1 than a third is from a 1. So after you get 1, 2, and 7 down, we're going to add the 3 in there. So the 3 looks like that. That's our third shape. Okay, it's a major third. So all this is diatonic major scale. That's what we're talking about right now. So not only do we need to see it in relation to 1, we also need to see how it's incorporated into the other chord tones around the 1. So we're going to play with the scale. But notice when we get to our G string right here, the B string relationship's a little different. That's a minor third. That shape doesn't work there. So you have to raise it a half step because remember the tuning issues on these? It's all fourths then a third out of nowhere. So there's your third, right? So 1 and 3, 1 and 3, 1 and 3, 1 and 3, 1 and 3. The last two, you can see them linearly as well, which is 2 whole steps. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. The more ways you can see these, the better, because depending on whatever musical situation you're in, one might be more efficient than the other, or quicker in the heat of battle, right? So now we have 1, 2, 3, and 7. So now we're going to add the 4. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4, that's our fourth shape. 1 and 4. Here it's going to be 1 and 4. Once again, that B string throws us for a loop sometimes. So 1 and 4, 1 and 4, 1 and 4, 1 and 4, 1 and 4. Anywhere there's a C, you can go the string right below it, except for that G string, B string thing, and there's going to be your 4. It's a 4. Then we put it in context of the scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, 7, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, 7, 1. Do it linearly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, 7, 1. Right? See those 4s? You're practicing singing those at the same time too, so you can develop that spatial reasoning. And now we're going to add the 5. So the 5 is this interval shape. It's like a power chord, right? It's a little different right here on this one. We have C and G, so that's 1 and 5. So it's a little more spread out there on the G string and B string. Everywhere else it looks like this. So now we put it in context of the scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You should be singing these, and though I'm not. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then go backwards. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 7, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 7, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 7, 1. You're just drilling these all over the place, right? Okay, so we're in the home stretch. Now we just need to figure out where the 6s are. So if this is 1, you're going to have 6 in 2 different places. You're going to have it right here. That's your A note, so 1 and 6. You're also going to have it a step and a half below the root. So if this is 1, step and a half down, that's your 6. If that's 1, that's your 6. If that's 1, that's your 6. If that's 1, that's your 6. Sound like a broken record. If that's 1, that's your 6. So if you see it like this, you can also see it like this. If that's 1, that's 6. If that's 1, that's 6. If that's 1, 6 is there. That's a little bit of a tricky one. You got to see that difference between the G string and B string again. 1 and 6. 1 and 6. Then put it in context. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 7, 6, 7, 1. 1, 7, 6, 7, 1. 1, 7, 6, 7, 1. 1, 7, 6, 7, 1. 1, 7, 6, 7, 1. So now that is all 7 notes of our diatonic major scale in the key of C. And you can start connecting these and play them across the neck. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. Now we see this C. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Keep climbing up if you want. 2, 3, 4, because that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Our fourth interval. 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 1. Right? Keep going. Explore the neck. Just wander around naming the intervals like that. Then what you do is you pick each one of these spots and then just come up with random configurations and try to quiz yourself. You could be like 1, 5, 1, 1, 4, 1, 1, 3, 1, 1, 7, 1. Do it all in terms of 1, 1, 5, 1. Notice your 5 is also directly below right here, right? So those are fifths. Play them together, hear them together like that. Hear everything in terms of 1. The 7 and 1, super dissonant. 6 gives you the minor sound. The stability of the 5. The 1 and 4 inverted to the bass. The 1 and the 3 inverted to the bass, which you can also hear that as a minor 6, depending on how you're hearing it. So this is just a crash course on being able to identify all the intervals across the neck. This is how they're organized, and this is typically how most people think about them. So now that you know this, go back and start trying to target them in the soloing context like I was talking about earlier, right? Play from a 1 and then try to land on a 6 when the 4 chord comes, that kind of stuff. On the 6 interval when the 4 chord comes. And then do a line from your 1 somewhere across the neck and then try to land on a 2 when the 5 chord comes, because that's the 5 of your 5 chord. And you're going to start to notice like, okay, wow, all my soloing now sounds intentional. There's structure to it. It's not just aimlessly wandering the neck and hoping you get lucky to land on something. And I think this will kind of connect the fretboard for you guys, combine that with other things I mentioned, the dynamics, the phrasing, maybe soloing on one string, singing your lines to develop some more phrasing that typically you wouldn't do just based on your muscle memory you've already built up over the years. And all of a sudden, this fretboard starts to open up a little bit more, and you start landing right, and it feels good to land on the right stuff. So if you guys like this stuff and you like this teaching style, like I said, please hit the link on that course if you guys are into this. It's a great way to organize the fretboard and express yourself creatively and develop your own voice rather than copying your favorite YouTube guitar player. Appreciate you guys hanging out. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. And thank y'all. Means a lot.